Hello and a very warm welcome to this special session to celebrate a milestone in the progress of a remarkable company, and that is Mobilize. I'm Ollie Barrett. I'm delighted to be hosting this session. I have lots of positive things to say about Mobilize. I must put my cards on the table. I'm not your impartial broadcaster today. I am a fan of this company, and I'm so happy to see its founder, co-founder and chief exec James Townsend with us, indeed joined by Helen Gironi from U5 Ventures and Louise Marsden from the Resolution Foundation. Greetings, everybody. Very nice to see you. We're not physically in one space, but we're all connected. In fact, we've all crossed paths in different ways. James, I'm going to come to you almost immediately, but Helen, very good to see you at U5. How are you?
Yeah, very well, very well. Really delighted to be here. Thanks, Ollie.
And the context for this, of course, and Louise as well, thank you for being with us, is that you and Helen, indeed, Resolution and U5 have invested in this latest round of Mobilize. That's right, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. It's really good to have joined them.
Now, James, let's cut to the chase, and I'll get some longer introductions momentarily from Helen and Louise. But for those new to the organisation, you're probably used to the elevator pitch by now. Congratulations, and remind us what Mobilize is here to do.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie, and thanks to everybody on the call for joining. So there are 11 million people in the UK who are unpaid carers. It's a funny term we use to describe anybody caring for a family member, a friend, or a neighbour. And that means that there's 11 million people trying to figure out how to get something right that is a really, really important part of their lives. So what we're doing is working with local authorities and NHS bodies to help them meet their statutory duties towards unpaid carers in providing support. And that might range from making sure that information is easily accessible and tailored to their needs, through to pointing them towards the provision of respite care, which can make a huge difference. So we're working with local authorities and NHS bodies to use technology to bring carers together so that we can learn from each other. And with that together, instead of just surviving in a caring role, we hope that we can be thriving in a caring role.
Yeah, so it couldn't be more important. And I suspect some of those numbers will surprise people, and not necessarily in a good way. It's easy to imagine, an elderly individual, perhaps looking after their partner of many years. The reality of caring is probably a little bit different. Just help paint us a bit of a picture, James.
Yeah, unpaid care can come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. So when I was 6, my mum was diagnosed with MS, and we've been on a bit of a journey. She's doing really well, but there are still little bits of input that I need to be making all the way along. And actually, quite often, we'll find that people don't think of themselves as a carer until their caring situation gets really intense. And actually, what can be really helpful is getting that support and advice in nice and early, so that I think of it as getting match fit for your caring role, which might be over a long period of time, or it might be a fairly short period that it's achieving intensity.
Yeah, well, I want to delve into all of that and unpick the community aspect to it as well. But Louise, when I think of the Resolution Foundation, forgive me, I think of think tank, I think of commenting on some of the most challenging issues of our day. I wasn't always thinking about ventures. So just tell us a little bit more how you come to be in this team of sort of social and sort of innovating entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Ollie. Yeah, the Resolution Foundation is primarily an independent think tank that strives to improve the living standards of those on low to middle incomes. And for a lot of that work, that means analysis of economic issues and policy issues that affect those groups of people. But for our investment work, we have a social investment arm that is aiming to invest particularly in improving work, low paid work and precarious work. We saw a gap for supporting innovation that aims to support those groups of workers that are neglected by lots of mainstream venture investment, and we really want to get help to folks who could really benefit from innovative uses of technology by improving the way they experience work. And carers are such a huge part of that workforce. 1 in 7 of the UK workforce is an unpaid carer, as James says, whether they recognise that or not. And so it's a huge group for us.
And I'm going to quiz you a bit more on why this was something you wanted to invest in a minute, but purely out of interest, and we've got quite a broad audience. I know we'll be catching up on this. Is that quite usual these days for foundations to be making investments? To what extent are you the outlier there?
I think increasingly foundations recognise that social investment is a really useful tool for identifying organisations and people that really want to create impact, but they want to do it through companies rather than necessarily through a social enterprise or a charity route. That we can, through that route, bring in other forms of investment and support. And for technology investment in particular, it's a really good way of providing that kind of layer of early support that the things can go on and achieve great things in the future.
Yeah, it's really interesting as a way of working. But just to be clear, when we talk about investment, and I'm being nosy now, aren't I? But in return for shares, is this grant funding? How does it play out?
We are investing in shares. We have invested alongside other investors in Mobilise and in other companies in our worker tech portfolio. And we're aiming to see them succeed in scaling up and creating impact across hundreds of thousands of workers in the UK. Yeah,
no, really refreshing. Thank you for what you're doing on that. Helen, tell us a little bit more about UFI. You have a fascinating portfolio, but just help set the scene in what you've been doing.
Thanks, Ollie. So yeah, UFI is an organisation that helps people upskill to find good work and acquire skills to progress in that work. We do this in a number of ways. We've got a very busy grants making team. We have the Ventures Fund, which I help run with a couple of colleagues to shine a light on what we think is working particularly well so that others can benefit from that and the insight that those well-performing businesses have gathered.
Yeah.
So we have a 10 million. Sorry.
Forgive me, here I am saying UFI. I should be saying UFI because I didn't always know you as that name of organisation because you had an interesting sort of origin story, almost sort of legacy, if you like, as I recall.
That's right. So the proceeds have come from the sale of a business called Learn Direct, and we have essentially used the proceeds to support businesses through grant funding and investment and sort of advocacy.
Yeah, and so typically your portfolio, you're on the board of another business I greatly admire, Learnably. I wish I was a shareholder in that as well. What typifies the sort of business that you like to back?
Great question, Ollie. Thank you. So we invest in businesses that are reaching users, reaching learners in a scalable way. So businesses that can go on and reach many hundreds and thousands of learners and do that in a variety of different ways. I think we're really pleased with the variety of different tech within our portfolio, and this being accessible to lots of different types of people, particularly individuals that aren't well served currently by, and so innovation is helping serve those people better.
Yeah, and potentially, Helen, particularly for your work, potentially globally.
Absolutely. So our mission is to reach users within the UK, but we're delighted if the companies that we back go on and reach users outside of the UK. That shows that they are really offering something quite innovative. It helps them scale. It helps them provide their service and products to UK users at a better rate and also improve on their product because they've got more resources to do that.
Yeah, no, got it. Now, James, have we sort of have we done two of your brilliant backers justice? I mean, this is I can tell why you're working together. Let's put it that way. They've got the sort of you've sort of got social drive plus ambition to scale on a problem worth solving. So I can see why we're all together on this. Anything else just before you tell us about the round? Anything else that you appreciate in Helen and Louise's contribution as well? Because I'm fascinated about entrepreneurs matching with funders. I think it's one of the most misunderstood things in the ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. I think there's something really important about tying up the work that UFI and the Resolution Foundation are doing beyond this investment into our work, because as you say, there's lots of investors out there who are going to push us for growth, which is the sort of thing that we want because we want to be scalable. But what's really important here is making sure that there's an alignment between growth and impact. We are in a really strong position because our business will grow as carers see the impact on their lives. If carers are seeing things happen, they will come back and they will really re-engage with the support we can provide. If carers come back, local authorities will want to commission more of it, and therefore we can make the model work. So being able to draw on the expertise that Helen and Louise and their colleagues bring to really understand that rigorous evidence-based approach to impact is transformational for a business like ours.
Yeah, no, got it. And I know with Louise's background at Nesta, it all makes good sense. Now today is a milestone, or this month is a milestone because you have raised your seed round. Tell us a bit more about the round, James.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. I mean, hey, we're an organisation that started broadly in the pandemic. So in those early days, like any startup, we were being scrappy, trying to figure out what the model was going to be, what the exact definition of the problem was, and how we can create a solution for that. We've got some really strong evidence points now on all of those aspects. So this investment is an opportunity for us to move forwards and really put some gas under the idea, and that's bringing some of the angel investors who've supported us in the past, and then the UFI investment being continued, and it's been an absolute treat to bring the Resolution Foundation in on this round as well.
Yeah, you've also got a bit of a business rock star in the mix. Tell us about that addition to the team.
Yeah, so Steve Garnett was leading this round, and he's an angel. I know him from back in my Teach First days when he was supporting that magnificent organization. And so we reconnected, and I think he saw this is an opportunity for a business that does good in the world, and wanted to get involved. And we're super excited to have that because he brings a really strong pedigree. He's been at Oracle and Salesforce right from the early days to look at how you can bring a business to scale in a really healthy and sustainable way.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I see so many business leaders who are these powerhouses in the business world. They have separate, let's say, philanthropic, charitable endeavors, but to get something in a bullseye like this that enables them to bring all of those passions and skills to bear, it was probably a bit of a gift to him, to be perfectly honest. I mean, was this an area that he'd known about? And that's not too personal a question. Why do you think he was so interested?
Well, I think Steve has always been someone who's interested in drawing out the potential of people. That was his interest in Teach First. He saw for himself the impact that a really exciting education can have on someone. So looking at unpaid carers who so often are left to look after themselves while all of the attention goes to the person that they're cared for, or left to navigate the system on their own. Actually, if we get the support for carers right, then we can see carers moving from surviving to thriving. And that's why I think, the Resolution Foundation, looking at how this can have real impact on work, UFI's emphasis on skills, really drawing out the massive potential of an incredibly talented bunch of people is exciting for everybody around this table.
Yeah, so just totally agree on that. Is anything else to say about the makeup of the round? Who's involved? Good to see UFI here on the call, Resolution Foundation. We've talked about Steve Garnett as a sort of super angel. And anything else to say about the round? I'm not sure how much you want to talk about numbers today or other individuals or organizations.
Well, I think that personally, Ollie, the thing that I'm really pleased about is that those people who took a massive risk on us in those early days are continuing to join with us. So, and I appreciate that because it's validation of the efforts of the fantastic team we've recruited. but it also means that we can continue to draw on their advice, their input, and their expertise, which, because this is a sustained involvement, they really understand the business. So that advice is really quality.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I want to understand more about the motivations of UFI and Resolution, but just maybe just a 30-second reflection. Part of your origin story, you're now a B Corporation, a standalone business, growing team. Your origin was interesting because it was through an impact program, if you like. Just remind us very briefly, and then we'll move.
Yeah, so our earliest partners in this endeavor were Zinc. So Cairo and I, who started off in the very early days, met each other on the Zinc program. This is a company builder looking to tackle the biggest social problems of our time. Yeah. And what was really striking for me was that encouragement to look inside yourself for the kind of problem that you want to go out and solve. And that was where Cairo and I, we both have very different caring roles, but we saw that there was something common there and that we wanted to share. And then with the addition of Suzanne, my co-founder, who also has caring responsibilities, we could see that there was a massive opportunity there. So Zinc was the furnace where all of that exciting thinking was brought together, and they've been fantastic supporters as we've gone along.
Yeah, so that's zinc.vc. Fascinating sort of impact builder, if you like. And I suppose, Louise, what you've seen in Mobilize, the Resolution Foundation, is more than this sort of very exciting entrepreneurial opportunity. It's something which matters to Britain. So tell us a bit more about why we should be investing and looking at in more detail unpaid carers. Just take us inside that a bit, because it might not be a specialist subject of our audience member.
Yeah, I think James alluded to the need to get into this area of potential, and that's something that we really recognise, is that lots of folks who are in lower paid work, who had taking jobs that actually have a lot of uncertainty around them, are doing that because the uncertainty goes hand in hand with the flexibility that you need in something like a caring role. And whereas something like childcare is something that's is not a solved problem, but it's at least on the agenda for most businesses, caring, I think, still is quite a hidden issue that people don't always disclose to their employer, that this is something that they're having to do. And so it's a juggle that they're having to make. And so shining a light on that and getting people the support they need to either stay in work, where you're trying to balance those two things out, or to return to work after a period of intense caring where you felt no choice but to leave the employment, or to find an employer who can kind of provide the sort of flexibility that you would need. You know, people often take a role that is well below their potential, that isn't using all of their skills because they have these other demands on them, and so they can't really see a way to make it work in a role that they might be able to take without those caring responsibilities. So it is all about that potential, that you've got this huge group of people who are not necessarily disclosing this problem, and you know, without the support in place, it can be really hard to sustain those different roles in your life.
Yeah, and briefly, forgive me interrupting, James, if someone's just joining the call, just give us those headline numbers again, because I just I just want those to come across loud and clear.
Absolutely, Ollie. So this is 11 million people just in the UK who are caring, and potentially 600 people every day dropping out of work because of the challenges of their caring responsibilities alongside work.
Right. So the double challenge there, Louise, as you're saying, is that number one, the carers aren't being supported, the people they care for aren't being supported, but the employers themselves, and therefore the economy, is losing out because a suitable balance couldn't be struck, and they fell out of the workforce.
Absolutely, and in terms of employers, we would love to see more of them recognise that this is a real challenge that their workforce. If you've got 1 in 7 people in the workforce facing this challenge, you know that every big employer has got a huge number of their workforce experiencing this, right. And it may just be that you don't know about it. And so we would love to see more recognition of this issue and more response by employers, and government is starting to respond with things like the Carers Leave Bill, but starting to recognise that these challenges are going to present in lots of people's lives over their lifetimes, and we need to figure out a way to work around it so that people can enjoy their lives and make the most of their abilities and their skills at the same time.
Yeah, it does make me think, actually, Helen, if we can crack this for carers. There must be so many different roles that people play. If you think of the multi hats that we wear, and we'll talk a bit more about how technology can support all of those things. But what intrigues me about your involvement, Helen, from UFI, is you followed on an initial investment. So that sounds to me like a good sign. Tell us what you've seen in Mobilise.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. So we were really keen to make an investment in the care sector. We think that there are structural imbalances within the sector, which make it really important, a really important sector for us. So, for example, we think it's very difficult to, or we hear from people working in the sector, it's very difficult to understand sort of development pathways, learning pathways, how people can progress in work. And so we were looking at it in particular, and that's how we met James. So we did a webinar, and James looked at the webinar, which was great. So there's that aspect, and there is also the massive aspect, as Louise was saying, of keeping people in work and keeping people learning in work, and that's why we were so excited about it. Since investing, yes, we're under no compulsion, essentially, as an investor, to keep following the businesses that we invest in. We only invest with the intention to keep following, but we have to back the successful businesses. So it's a great reflection of how Mobilise is doing, that we have continued to invest. We've seen great traction with the local authorities, and that's a really encouraging sign. They are, more of the conversations are turning into contracts, and better contracts for the business and for the users. So that those really are the main reasons why we decided to follow on.
Yeah, no, we'll happy to hear that you did. I mean, I suppose my question to you both, really, Helen and Louise, aside from the importance of what Mobilise is doing, will be how they are doing it. So, without showering James with compliments that he doesn't need, what was it about the team that you thought, this is fresh, this is something we want to back? Louise, then Helen.
So I think one of the things that James has already mentioned is that this team has experience of this problem, right? So it's one of the things that we look for is, do you understand this problem deeply? And all of the founding members of the team have caring responsibilities and really understand what that tension looks like. And for us, when you're trying to solve these important problems and create impact, knowing the problem inside out is a really vital part of it. We were also really impressed with the progress they've made to date. As I said, it's something of a hidden problem. So not every conversation you have with people are going to recognise, unless they've experienced it personally, that this is an issue that's so widespread. So I'm really encouraged by the fact that they've made huge progress to date, and they've got such a great user base and a great group of local authorities making use of the support that they're offering. So that traction and that progress is a really great sign for us.
All right, no, good feedback. Helen, I dread to think how many pitch decks you see. This was one that got you, and you followed on. What is it about the team?
Fortunately, I love reading pitch decks, so I enjoy it. What really struck us is how open the team are. We really love that in teams. They want to talk to us about what they're doing. They are really interested to hear our perspective, and they're very ready to discuss, all the details of what they're doing. It's a great sign. It's a great sign of confidence in what they're doing, but also a great sign that they want to be the best at what they're doing.
Yeah. So is that a diplomatic way, Helen, of saying that they're not afraid to share the challenges as well?
Yeah, I mean, any early stage business has so many challenges, and if they're crowdsourcing the solutions to those challenges, I think that's brilliant.
Right, 100%. So James, I feel that we should pause. I've got more questions for each of you, but I guess why don't we just pause briefly, because I want our viewer to be even clearer about what Mobilise looks like in practice, because it isn't just a single carer going to get some tips. I sense it's more multi-dimensional. So yeah, paint us more of a picture, because I want us to go away going, right, got it.
Absolutely. So the thing that's at the heart of this is community, and starting to break that traditional idea of local authority support being a commission service that an individual can go and access and take their piece of support from, and instead starting to build that sense that we can support each other. That's where our name comes from. The idea that we want to mobilize the knowledge, wisdom, and expertise, not that's in the town hall, but actually in the houses and streets of the whole of the borough, where people really know how to navigate the system, how to look after yourself when you're caring, how to get stains out of the carpet. This is a thing that happens quite often. There's loads of that kind of practical insight. Yeah. But then what comes with that is also the emotional support. So receiving advice from someone who has been there before it is a really important way of unlocking, building a relationship. And we know that caring can be a hugely isolating role. So by building that community, we're making sure that there are networks of support and drawing on
evidence. Imagining here, James, is this? I'm going back to the old example of Mumsnet with sort of bulletin boards, or is it face to face? How are these interactions playing out on the platform or otherwise?
Yeah, so a couple of different ways actually. We noticed that different carers want to engage in different ways. So some of this is Mumsnet style online communities. Interestingly, some of the really important bits of engagement we get are from non-caring related stuff, pictures of pets and that sort of thing. But those are the things that trigger the relationships that start to build trust amongst the group. Other times, there might be things where people want to share something anonymously, and what we can do is we can create content by surveying the community. So every week we'll be putting a question out. People can submit their responses, how they would approach a particular issue, and we then build that into a piece of content which can then be shared. So it's really grounded in the community.
So just so we understand, when you work with a local authority, are they effectively pointing somebody towards Mobilise, or are they somehow white labeling? How does it actually interface in practice?
Yeah, so local authorities will point carers to the Mobilise platform, and if you have a postcode of a local authority that is contracted with us, then you get the full suite of tools and resources. Yeah. But we're also working with local partners, so very often there will be a carer centre or a carer hub, working really closely with them to learn from them what are the specific needs of carers in that borough. But also to make sure we're understanding what their offer is and we can signpost in return. Yeah. And then the key thing actually is to make sure we're going out and independently using digital tools to identify carers in the borough who've not previously accessed support. So 80% of carers on the Mobilise platform have never accessed support for their care and role. These are new to the system that we're able to go out and reach independently.
Because to be blunt, if I can think about, quotes, the old days, I'm thinking leaflets, I'm thinking some sort of drop-in centre that I might physically visit, which was wildly, sorry to generalise, wildly out of sync with how people live their lives.
Well, importantly, there are some people for whom flyers at the GP surgery are a really important way of engaging. And typically they will be really well served by the existing, what you might call conventional carer support functions. And we're looking to be complementary to that, to reach those new groups. A lot of carers between 45 and 65 who are tech savvy. They are accessing Mobilise on their phone while they're on the bus or watching the X Factor, and therefore designing services that are going to work for that engagement route is really key, and something that's only going to grow over the future.
Yeah, so on that, because Louise and Helen, I want to quiz you a little bit more about impact and technology as well. But James, I want us to have been as clear as we can be on what this latest milestone for Mobilise means for carers, because presumably state funding is incredibly tight.
Absolutely. This is a sector where funding is super tight just at the moment. And so this investment means more funding available for carers, which is really exciting, more funding for the sector. But it also means that we have the opportunity to to do some of the expensive bits of research and development to develop new products. Individual local authorities wouldn't be able to take the kind of risks that we're taking in developing new tools and investing in that technological capacity.
Yeah.
And the outcome of that for carers is that we can make available via their local authority cutting edge technologies that can improve the user experience, but also improve the burden as well. And I think improving the user experience is really important. This needs to be high quality because carers are important people. So just cobbling something together, to our mind, isn't good enough, because we need to make sure carers are extremely short on time. They're in a very stressful situation. We need to make this absolutely a slick experience for them.
Yeah. Now I'm conscious that we're sort of sneaking into people's lunch hour, possibly, or they're catching up afterwards. But thank you, James. That's super helpful. Louise, you want to see a return on your investments, quite rightly. You're also driven by impact. So help us understand that that sort of impact dimension to your investments, how you approach that, how you measure that.
Yeah. It's a great question. It's something that's a real challenge across the kind of impact investing and social investment sector. When we think about impact in the world of work, the things that we want to see change through the investments that we're making are, we sort of divide them across 4 dimensions that relate to different aspects of good work. So better pay, better prospects for the future, greater power to do, to have agency in the workplace, and then well-being as well, right? A better experience of work. And that's really where a lot of the investment in Mobilize comes in, is people experiencing work as more complementary to the roles that they have at home, to make it less stressful, to find it a sort of supportive environment. So we think about those different dimensions and how we can move those forward for individuals. And we think that technology is a great tool for this. It's really good at a couple of things which James has linked to here. One is providing information, the right information to the right people at the right time. There's so many different ways you can just deliver exactly what people need in the way they need it, and with better technology and better interfaces. And community is the other part. As James said, you can be really isolated as a carer. You can experience a huge amount of isolation from that. But building connections through online communities can be a really good way of connecting workers and carers who wouldn't otherwise come across each other. And as James says, finding somebody who's just experienced the thing you're doing, or is just ahead of you in this pathway, is a super helpful way of kind of getting support and understanding of the issue you're going through. And so across a bunch of our investments, we see real value in creating those communities and joining up people who wouldn't otherwise perhaps bump into each other, but who share a common issue that they really could support each other on.
So how are you expecting, and we could talk for ages about this, I know, but briefly, how are you expecting or seeing Mobilize measure its impact on that sense? Because it strikes me from what you've already said that you are as interested in the impact on the carer as on the person being cared for, and that's a very interesting blend.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we always work with our portfolio companies to figure out what the right dimensions of measurement are on impact. We know that for impact measurement to be really effective, it needs to align with something that the business is really caring about, is part of what they're currently working on. So we always discuss those in partnership with the businesses and come up with hopefully a really simple list of things. But I know that James has already put in place with his team a really great approach to impact, which captures not just the breadth of people you can reach, but the depth of interactions with them.
Right.
And that's a really important part of impact, is not just how many people you're reaching and just a reach number, but what difference does it make?
Yeah, and I'm going to bring Helen back in momentarily, but James, just briefly, anything you'd add on that impact measurement, because it's very central to your mission.
Yeah, absolutely. We were really pleased when we did a bit of a study earlier this year, looking at how carers were seeing progress. And 74% of those who'd been often just for a couple of weeks engaging with the platform saw progress in one of the 4 dimensions we were measuring. These are things like having people that they can talk to about their caring role who get it, or having an emergency plan. That sort of practical step which can make a real difference for your caring role.
Yeah, and just on that, presumably as we go on to talk more about technology now, one challenge you've got is that you might have people on the platform who are 18 and others who might be 80. So when you talk about latest technology, you're having to strike a balance. How do you do that?
Well, I guess there's 2 points in there, actually. One is to remember that if you've got something really valuable, people will use the technology to find it. So even people who might be 80 are increasingly actually familiar with some of the technologies that we're looking to use.
Yeah.
The other piece comes back to making sure that the user experience is a really high quality. So we're using the tools that carers will already be using. You shouldn't have to learn how to use a new tool. So a lot of it is based around email, existing social media, SMS, WhatsApp, that kind of thing, and designing it in such a way that you can't get it wrong. And that's really important for carers.
Right, really helpful. Now, Helen, it strikes me that all too often when we read about technology, we you know can get this sort of bad rep of sort of, you know, whether it's doom scrolling or phones to be banned in schools, and yet I feel that you're going to have a much more optimistic view on how technology can help us improve skills. So remind us of how life could be and how you see this challenge.
Brilliant question. Thanks, Ollie. So all of the businesses that we invest have to have a significant technology part to them, essentially, and that's because of the scale that we think can be achieved with good technology. So it generally can give really good reach and scale at a cost that is affordable, much more affordable than one-on-one, one-to-a-few in-person learning. Essentially, I'm really optimistic about what technology can do. You're absolutely right. I think it provides the variety that people need. I think we all learn in very different ways. We all consume information in very different ways. Some people like short form learning. Some people would rather do a sort of deep dive. With some people it needs to be gamified, and the technology, innovation in technology enables people to learn in the way that suits them best, and also in ways that suits the content that they're consuming. I also think tech enables a greater sort of personalization of content. So it can be, technology can do a better job of picking up, for example, how content is being consumed by looking at pace of speech, for example, eye contact when you're sort of, helping people with interview technique. There's so much that technology can do that is as good as one-on-one intervention, and in some cases even better. So it's hugely exciting, the innovation that's happening at the moment.
This is very topical. We've got our sort of political leaders meeting all around us at the moment. One thing that did catch my eye in terms of vocational technology, there's a sort of quite a week of activity just coming up next month on that, because I'm going to be, just tell us a bit more about that. That caught my eye.
So on the 13th to the 17th of November, we have the week of VocTech. And this is essentially a week of free activities and events that we organise every year. And it showcases how technology is being used and will be used in the future to help people learn, particularly in vocational learning.
Well, we will look out for that. That's sort of VocTech, voctech.co.uk. Thank you for that. A quick sort of plug there. James, Helen is speaking to the sort of huge potential in terms of some of those numbers. On the ground, you're unlocking relationships with local authorities. Give us a sense of your ambition and potential scale of mobilise, and crucially, we need to know what's next.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're really excited to be seeing the momentum that we need to see to really rethink how carer support is offered across the country. So we've been working with 38 different local authorities to date, which is an achievement we're really proud of. And of course, from each one of those relationships, picking up learning about how it's done differently, what works in different situations, and what can be really effective interventions. In the long run, the vision is to make a really strong community across the UK and potentially around the world as well. because the more people we have in our community, the stronger, the richer, the deeper that bank of knowledge, wisdom, and expertise that we can bring to every carer that needs it. So what comes next is we're having conversations with a number of authorities to roll out Mobilise in their area, but also with those who we're already working with, looking at different ways that we can be enhancing the product, looking at a range of different tools that will improve the effectiveness, but also increase the reach of the support that they can provide.
Because I just think that the potential is so huge on that. But very detailed question on local authorities. Who do you end up needing to speak to? I wouldn't really know where this sits, because there's a tech element to it. There's obviously a commissioner involved. Where does it head to?
So very often our first conversation is with the carers lead. They're the people who will be really in tune with what carers need and what carers are looking for. We'll then also be speaking to commissioners about the practicalities of it. But very often Mobilise sits within a transformation project where councils are radically rethinking the structure of their offer. So that will often come to the Director of Adult Social Care and their team to be thinking strategically, long-term, about how they can deploy their resources much more effectively.
Right. So a way that we can continue to help Mobilise is unlocking some of those connections to local authorities across the UK, I hope. Louise, what's your advice going to be to James and the team as they go into this next chapter? I'm sure you've given it before, but maybe a bit more publicly. What are you saying to them?
So I think, James is spot on. The reason we invest in this round is we're really excited for what comes next. So it is taking those learnings from each of those existing relationships and building on those to create the next version of the community and the product, and expanding out into reaching other communities and other parts of the country that haven't got access to the full suite of Mobilise tools yet. So yeah, we're really excited to see what comes next, and we really support them in kind of creating that momentum for growth and getting, as Graham says, the bigger the community gets, the more momentum we get behind it, then the better solution we'll have.
Yeah, no, momentum is a great word for that. Helen, what's your advice? What do you tell him in those sort of confidant moments?
I think one of the most important reflections I have, I guess, is keep doing what you're doing, James, to understand how your users, your community engages with the platform, what they get out of it, and what they would like to see more of. I think you're relatively early stage, and there's lots that you're doing, and grow with the user base. Listen to them, keep listening to them.
Yeah, and on that note, James, obviously, this is excellent advice. What have you learned so far about listening and responding to feedback from, let's be honest, quite a wide variety of stakeholders?
Oh wow, what a challenging question, Ollie. I think the big thing I've learned that can be really effective is just to be fully transparent. So everybody on your cap table is on Team Mobilise and looking to support. So wherever there are things that you're unsure about, potentially even embarrassed about, get them out into the open, because everybody around that table has been there before and knows exactly how challenging this situation can be and wants to help. So I think that's key. I think the other piece is looking at data. Helen mentions learning from the community. I think some of this is about getting the sense of what's going on, but actually having the data to back up those hypotheses can be really game-changing. And that's where you find the really unexpected, exciting chunks of insight that can make all the difference.
Yeah, 100%. So we're marking this moment. It's a milestone for Mobilise, a seed round investment, including UFI Ventures, including the Resolution Foundation, including angels, private individuals, including Steve Garnett, who we've touched on this call. James, I guess a final question, and let me say thank you to Helen Gironi from UFI and to Louise Marston from the Resolution Foundation. James, I suppose my final question to you really, which of course includes any final comments you'd like to make, but in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, we hope that the landscape for unpaid carers will look different. How does it look different? And what will you and your allies in this space have achieved?
Yeah, well, thank you to you, Ollie, as well as to Helen and Louise for this really helpful conversation. It's been great to have you along and to share some of the conversations we've been having. In 5 years' time, I think we can be really ambitious for what we want for carers. There's no excuse for any carer to be feeling alone or isolated. We should be able to build a community around them to be supportive. And I think, crucially, as pressures on the health and care sector increase, putting carers at the centre of policy decisions, grounded on evidence that's coming out of our community, so that we can build solutions that will actually make a difference to their lives. There's so much we can be doing there, and it will be transformational.
Yeah, well, you have put something in there around policy, which hints at a whole next discussion, which will probably have to wait for another day. So in that sense, you'll have to stay tuned. But to Helen, to Louise, and of course to James, thank you for being on this call. Thank you to you for tuning in, whether you're live or catching up, and thank you for your interest. If you wanted to know more, mobiliseonline.co.uk, or particularly to see about getting your organisation involved, mobiliseonline.co.uk/organisations. So please do delve further and share this recording with anyone you think would find it valuable and useful. For now, thank you, James, Helen, Louise. I've been Ollie Barrett, hugely proud to know and be a shareholder in Mobilise. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, goodbye.